Progress.
Okay. So for 7.6, hopefully these next few slides summarize enough from your reading assignments how you would compose or create the purpose of your research, and then narrow that down even further into your research questions. And so overall, I hope you can identify a need for your particular study. I want you to try and write some drafts of your research purpose statement from what need that you do identify. And students will write a research question or questions that narrow down their purpose statement even more and gets a little bit more specific. And so the purpose statement really should indicate why you want to conduct the study. And so if you remember a while ago, our last lecture, we talked about the literature map and how we can use the concept of the literature map to identify what that gap is in the study, right? And when we identify what that gap is in the study, then that lends itself to the purpose for us conducting the study, or our purpose statement. And so it should be a central, more controlling idea of the study. In other words, it sort of sets the intent of the study, but it tends to be more broader in scope, okay? When we have that broad purpose, right, the purpose of this research study is to explore blah, 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 or the purpose of this study is to measure blah, 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 okay? And so later, then, we want to specifically identify a particular research question that still falls under the realm of the purpose of our study, okay? So those research questions are going to be more narrow and more specific and really guide what it is that we're looking at and how we're analyzing things. I love the Creswell text because their different chapters give you specific examples and give you a template or a script on how you can identify maybe the purpose of your study. Okay, but again, you have to know what's in the literature first, and you have to use the concepts of that literature map to know where you should focus on your study. So if you haven't been looking at articles yet and you're not fully read on the topic that you're looking at, this is going to be really hard for you. So you have to make sure that you're really immersing yourself in the literature and you're aware of what is in your topic. So qualitative purpose statements usually focus on a single idea or phenomenon, right? And so that's that commonly occurring occurrence or commonly occurring experience that a particular population or groups of people have all experienced. That's that central phenomenon idea, okay? And so usually with our purpose statement, we want to use an action verb about learning, okay? So, the purpose of this qualitative study is to explore the lived experiences of, right? Or the purpose of this qualitative study is to learn about. So again, that explore needs to be that action verb. Typically, qualitative is about things emerging and hearing from a point of view or giving the voice to a participant, okay? Where your quantitative statements are going to include more so your independent, dependent variables, maybe identify whether relationships exist between this variable and that variable. There might be some theoretical thing that you're trying to test in a quantitative purpose statement. You might be looking at differences that exist between participants, those kinds of things. And so, you might have a more, or a purpose statement that's more so related to the purpose of this. And then, you might have your research design in there, like survey design, research study. is to compare men to women with, okay, and then in whatever measure you might be looking at. The purpose of this survey design research study is to identify whether differences exist between year 1 OT students and year 2 OT students' professional skills. Okay, and so they feel really different, don't they? Qualitative purpose statements are kind of fluid, and you're looking at, I want to explore their perceptions. I want to explore their lived experiences. I want to hear from the participants, where quantitative is going to be, what's the difference? Is there a difference that occurs? Is there a relationship? Is there a direct correlation? Is there a, something to do with measures? Mixed methods, the purpose of mixed methods or a mixed methods purpose statement sometimes gets a little messy, to be honest with you, because with mixed methods, you're using both qualitative and quantitative. And so you'll likely want to discuss the reason for your mixed method study. And so you might be looking at, the purpose of this study is to understand the data at a more detailed level by using a qualitative follow-up to further explain the quantitative results. And I'll get into, when we talk about mixed methods, right, we'll talk about the 3 different paradigms, if you will, on the different mixed methods, sort of the purposes of each paradigm of mixed method studies. So qualitative, so these are some good examples. And again, this is your Creswell and Creswell textbook, has sample purpose statements in chapter 6. Please take a look at those. I even snipped some out of the templates or the scripts and have those embedded into or in your Canvas module. Okay, and so these are some examples. For qualitative, you would identify phenomenological study, right? That's the lived experiences, the essence of a phenomenon, those kinds of things. And so the purpose of this phenomenological study is to explore the perspectives of year 1 OT students' attainment of professional skills at UMary. Okay, so pretty broad, right? And we want phenomenology, we want the experiences, we want to learn the experiences, we want to learn the opinions, the thoughts from our participants, which here are UMary OT students, okay, and their professional skills. What are professional skills? So we might be able to then, with our research question, get into more detailed levels of what those professional skills are or what professional skills we want to focus on. Maybe there's a theoretical framework on professional skill attainment that would tell us and inform us what those professional skills would be. Or maybe we would want to hear what our year 1 OT students' perceptions are on professional skills and maybe identify or hear what they view as being their professional skills. Okay, so again, that means a purpose statement is rather broad, right? And that means just posing the questions or the details that I just provided. We would want a research question then to narrow that down a little bit further for us. With quantitative, you might have also a survey design, or you would have your design in there. And so the purpose of the survey design study or survey study is to determine if differences exist with professional skill attainment between year 1 OT students and year 2 OT students at UMary. So again, that purpose statement is rather broad because we don't know how are we going to measure professional skills. Since it's quantitative, and I would imagine that it would be a survey in some way, and we're going to be looking at comparing the results of that survey between year 1 students and year 2 students. So the purpose is maybe a little bit more specific or narrow than qualitative, right? Mixed method study. And so one of the mixed methods designs is called a convergent mixed methods design. And so the whole purpose of the convergent is to collect both quantitative and qualitative data together at the same time, simultaneously. But then you only analyze the quantitative and you only analyze the quantitative and qualitative. So you're doing your analysis separately, And then after you've analyzed them, you sort of merge the results. So a lot of times your quantitative might give you maybe differences in something or measure something or identify a relationship. Your qualitative pieces of that convergent design may offer explanation as to why some of those results are the way they are with the quantitative study. And so again, it's going to really depend on, are you using the convergent mixed methods designs or one of the other two? And so this mixed methods study will address professional skill attainment of OT students. A convergent mixed methods design will be utilized in order to collect qualitative data and quantitative data simultaneously, analyzed separately, and then merged. In this study, quantitative data will measure blank, probably professional skill level. The quantitative data will explore the perceptions of OT students' professional skill attainment. The reason for collecting both quantitative and qualitative data is to both measure professional skill attainment and hear the perceptions of how and why the professional skills were attained in a certain manner, something along those lines. So the mixed method study purpose statement can get rather long, right? But if we even go back to the previous slide, the purpose statement discussed the reason for mixed methods. So within the purpose statement here, right, you're hearing quantitative data and qualitative data are simultaneously gathered, analyzed separately. The reason for this is to, and so you're providing that rationale. So research questions narrow down the purpose statement, and again, they're really going to lend themselves to your research methods, okay? You may or may not have a research hypothesis. Your hypothesis may give you predictions that involve a variable. So if I say variable, automatically you should be thinking quantitative research, okay? So quantitative, the purpose of this study is to determine if differences exist with professional skill attainment between year 1 OT students and year 2 OT students at UMary. So how could we narrow that down even further? Okay, so our research question is, or could be, what is the variation of scores? Or what is the difference? Is there a difference that occurs in scores on professional skills as measured by, and then I've named the survey tool I'm using, between year 1 and year 2 OT students at UMary? And so when I say that the research questions narrow down the purpose statement and may give us more ideas about a particular method or a design, okay, your cross-sectional survey design, okay, it would lend itself, this research question would lend itself to this particular research design. And so this research design, and I briefly talked about cross-sectional research, is you're taking cross-sections, specific units of time, right, of year 1 OT students and year 2 OT students. So you're taking that section of time and you're looking at that specific cross-section of time, what that measurement is at that specific interval, okay? And then when you take that data at that specific time, you're then having year 1 OT students and your 2 OT students, right? And now you're able to compare the two. You're able to see, do differences exist? Or what are the differences in scores between year 1 and year 2 OT students? And that would then lend itself to a statistical analysis of likely maybe a t-test, okay? The qualitative, the purpose of this phenomenological study is to explore the perspectives of year 1 OT students' attainment of professional skills at UMary. A little bit broader, okay? Clearly, in this purpose of this research, we want to hear from the year 1 OT students and what their thoughts are, what their perceptions are on attaining professional skills here at UMary. And so with phenomenology lends itself to asking the questions of how and what. What has been experienced? How have things been experienced? what and in how and in what ways have things been experienced? And so here we go with a research question. Again, phenomenology is famous for how or what, or how and in what ways are professional skills attained in year one OT students? Okay, so this lends itself to phenomenological methods where we're going to ask the participants how they acquired professional skills. What professional skills do they feel or do they think they attained, and in what ways did they attain them? Okay, and so we would be interviewing them about their experiences in the OT program to glean that information or to learn that information. If we're having a mixed methods research, we likely would have 3 research questions. And so we might have a qualitative research question, a quantitative research question, and then an integrated question where you're merging the two, or depending on what type of research design of mixed methods you have. And so if we're doing a mixed methods convergent design study, we might be doing a survey, right, on the purpose of this, or I'm sorry, research question. What is the mean scores for professional skills by year one students as measured by the Professional Skill Attainment Survey? Okay, so that would be quantitative. We're just finding out where the year one professional skill attainment is. What's the average? Okay, well, maybe we want to further inform that research question, or maybe we want to further inform that study by offering a qualitative portion, right? So what was a qualitative, what was experience, or what were the contributing factors in the OT program at UMary that contributed to professional skill attainment according to year one OT students? Okay, something along those lines. And then the third question would be maybe, does the quantitative data, does the qualitative data, do those results inform the quantitative data results? And so again, there's some kind of where you're integrating the two, do or does, or sorry, I'm kind of fumbling here because I'm not, I don't have a lot of mixed methods experience. And so, and I'm shooting off my cuff here, but, you know, integrating an integrative question would be, if we're looking at professional skill attainment of students, what are the experiences students identify as being or as contributing to their professional skill attainment? And so again, we'd be taking that qualitative data of what are the experiences they're identifying, and then merging that with the quantitative data of their mean scores, perhaps, in different professional skills. And so maybe, you know, their mean scores on the professional skill survey, right? There is different levels of professional skills. So maybe there is one of the professional skills on that measure is communication, right? And so maybe students in the qualitative data analysis are talking about having to report the purpose of OT, having to do practice lab, having to do scenarios in course lab work, having to do group work, all of those things, right? And so when you get that data in the qualitative, and then you look at, oh, well, look, their mean scores in communication is a lot higher than all the other professional skill scores, that's when you could merge, right, those results. So in your research group, and this is hopefully will help you with applying, so we talked about the literature maps today to help you identify gaps in the literature. And so some questions to ask yourselves as group members, are there areas that you think you could expand? Is there another perspective you could add? Right? Is there a need for either a qualitative study, a quantitative study, or is there a further need for mixed method study? Is there a component of your topic that doesn't have many articles? And so I covered those concepts today in our previous lecture. I covered those concepts with the literature map, and I provided you with my example where I found a lot of qualitative data on one topic, a lot of quantitative data on another topic, not a lot of data on another topic in relation to my literature. That helped me decide the purpose of my study, okay? So once you've identified that gap and where you want to focus, you can use the templates in Creswell in Chapter 6 and plug in that information to create a purpose statement, okay? Once you have your purpose statement, try writing a few research questions or a couple research questions. Again, those research questions, they're specific templates in Chapter 7. And so go ahead and try your luck on those, not your luck, but I mean, use what you know about your literature and try and formulate some of those research questions, okay? I'm certainly available to help facilitate conversations and checking in on groups, their purpose statement, their research questions. However, I am not an expert in every topic, okay? I don't know what's in the literature on these topics. And so I feel sometimes like I get put between a rock and a hard place between, a student taking this course is, Dr. Lawson, I'm using this template, right? This is what we found in the literature. This is my purpose statement. From this purpose statement, we're lending ourselves to this research question. And I'm just looking at, are you following the template? Does it match or does it logically flow? And it might for me, right? And then you take it to your research preceptor, and your research preceptor may have more knowledge about the literature, and they're like, no, right? Or they're not familiar with the Creswell and Creswell textbooks. They're used to a different method, right? They're used to writing or crafting a purpose of their research a different way, or research questions a different way. And so I tried to provide some additional resources here for you, not just the Creswell. The Creswell is a great place to start, okay? The literature map, identifying the gap, that gap leads to the purpose. The purpose is further narrowed down by the questions or questions, okay? And so I love that process. That's a very, very good place to start, okay? However, just know that you will be submitting a copy of your purpose statement, your research questions to your research preceptor, and you likely, you will get feedback, okay? You will get feedback. So it's helpful to be in contact with your research preceptor as you're going through the literature, as you're maybe, what I would encourage you to do is to have that literature map, right? And with a group, within your research group, become conversant in what you're noticing in the literature, where those gaps are. What are the central topics in that literature? Maybe you have some ideas then where the gap is. So you can draft maybe a couple purpose statements. Not that you would implement more than one purpose statement, but I'm just saying, to prepare for a meeting with your preceptor, maybe from each purpose statement, narrow down maybe some specific research questions that you feel you could look at or feel you could attain. And so schedule a meeting when you get that. Schedule a meeting with your research preceptor if you haven't already, and go through the literature map and tell them how you got to a purpose statement or why you got to a particular purpose statement, how you drafted your research questions, and have that conversation with them and their knowledge about not only their topic, but their knowledge in how they do and conduct research, okay? So let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm just going to briefly show some Okay, so this is Canvas. And so we have purpose statement scripts and research statement scripts. So again, these were taken right from your Creswell readings, chapter 6, chapter 7. There's also an online resource for research questions and how you could formulate those research questions. I really like looking at a bunch of examples when formulating research questions. And so I found this particular guide to be helpful, pretty general, if you will. And I found these videos, it's sometimes hard as students to wrap our brain around the central phenomenon, right? And what's the difference between the central phenomenon and then the research questions? And here's some videos, right? How to write the central question. This would be more so related to maybe the purpose of your study, I would say, followed by your sub-questions, which may be related more so to your research questions. She does a really nice job of explaining it, other than her, how does she pronounces something kind of funny. I'm drawing a blank, but nonetheless, she has some really good examples specifically about nursing, and talks about perhaps those different ways of crafting those questions. So again, it's a different format, hearing a video and those kinds of things. So make sure you submit that literature map to Canvas. That is a graded assignment, but it's just simply graded. Did you do it? Did you not do it? And you know, my hope is that you're using it as a tool. It's not necessarily, I'm not going to look at it and even know if it's right or wrong. It's just, it hopefully helps you organize that data. And I think you need to have enough readings under your belt with your topic and have some level of organization of the different topics within your topic. That makes sense? So you can narrow down and chip away at maybe the purpose of your study, and then further attach those questions. Okay, so certainly there's going to be some time for you guys to work after class. I didn't go the full 50 minutes here, and so be meeting with your research group, work on those literature maps, have the conversation, come up with some research purposes or ideas and questions, and meet with your research preceptor and try and narrow that down, have that conversation with you. Once we narrow down your research question or identify your research question, that's going to lend itself next to the different specific methodologies, right? Like your, I mean, phenomenology is pretty cut and dry, but maybe like your cross-sectional survey design, or your pre-test, post-test survey design, or your ex post factos research design, or some of those kinds of things. So will kind of become more clear as you identify your research question. Okay, and again, we'll talk further about those designs. As your IRB, or for your IRB proposal, you'll notice you need that written background and need, right? That background and need forms and brings that reader, informs that IRB board to, is there enough need to justify this study? Okay. Does the research question, what is the research question? So that also belongs in your IRB proposal. So the IRB proposal, you know, needs that background and need, needs your purpose, needs your research questions. It's going to need additional information about what methods or methodology you use, which will also gain guidance or give guidance on your participant selection, your data analysis, those sorts of things. So keep looking at that IRB form, right, for what content you're going to have to write about for that IRB proposal. Okay, so right now, purpose, research questions, and just know what you decide to do is going to further inform that IRB proposal. Okay, get to work. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you more in person.